Hello and welcome to Dynamics NAV. Is your version no longer supported? My name is Lori Bogatis, the moderator for today's webinar. During this webinar, Colbine will review key considerations for upgrading GP and recommended solutions. I'd like to turn the presentation over to Colbine Ironson, Sikich partner in charge of Dynamics NAV.
Hello, everybody. Good to be with you here on this. It's still morning for us here in California, where I'm at, but I'm assuming we have people from all over the country here. So Laura just covered this for me. A bit about myself. I am the partner in charge of our national Dynamics NAV practice for Sikich and the US West region in general. I live in Los Angeles, and I want to start by quickly going through Sikich as a firm, because the people on the call might not realize the scope of what we do here at Sikich. If you only dealt with us from one particular application perspective, I think it's useful for you to understand the breadth and scope of what we do here. A holistic view then could look something like this. We're trying to come to the table with a 360-degree view of your systems and provide you and shore you up with expertise in all of these areas, because it's increasingly important that these play well together and to enable you to capture the benefits and competitive advantage this platform provides. So to this question then, what does end of life mean vis-a-vis your product here, your ERP product? If you're on NAV 2009, you really need to be making some choices at this point. 2013, you also have to be thinking about those things. It's less urgent, but still very, very pertinent, just given the time frames these things can take, depending on the complexity of your current situation. And you don't want to end up in a situation where you're not getting proper support from Microsoft. The second topic we'll cover here are some of the key considerations, your options, and the next steps, how we would propose you proceed here. So jumping into topic number one in our agenda here today, planning ahead. Mainstream support, and that's an important term, for NAV 2013 ended in January 2018. Generally, this means no bug fixes, patches, very limited Microsoft support, no year-end service packs, and you should expect some of the third parties to not pay much attention to older versions of their software. If we look at the dates here, and this is a website you can go to if you want to check on the status of various products, Microsoft products, from a support perspective. And if you look up, in particular, Dynamics NAV 2009 and 13, you will get these tables here. So you can see that for 2009, R2 and the earlier versions, mainstream support ended in 2015, and we have extended support, which is sort of the optional support you can buy from Microsoft after the mainstream support ends. That lasts till 2020. So if you don't have that, you should realize if you're on 2009, you are really out of support from Microsoft. So any incidents you might have, any patching you might need, or bugs that hold you back in any way, that could be a costly proposition for you to get resolutions to those. More details on how these different terms work from a Microsoft perspective, you can see on that website, which I've listed on here. Now, from a 2013 perspective, which is the first in what I would call a series of modern NAV implementations, the life cycle started there at the end of 2012. R2 came in 13, and mainstream support ended here in January. The extended support for this product is available through 2023, but that's something you will have to arrange for if you don't have it already. Now, from a Sikich perspective, we of course try to support our clients as much as we can on older versions, independent of Microsoft, and of course we try to encourage you to stay relatively current, and that's going to be increasingly important here in the future, and not really an option for those that are on say the SaaS product that we'll talk about in a minute. But it's going to be increasingly difficult for us or any partner for that matter to support old versions and older versions, especially versions even before 2009. And believe it or not, we still have a handful of clients on software that's older than that. But if you put that into perspective, you're talking about a piece of software that's over a decade old and has very limited or no support from its publisher. In the modern era, that is inviting disaster, both from a security perspective and also an operational stability perspective. Especially if your business is evolving or growing, you will keep running into bottlenecks that are a direct result of architectural decisions taken for that software back in the day, which might have been fine then, or decisions made for your particular implementation would have been fine given the size and scope of it at that time. But as time goes by, you might have evolved to hopefully higher volumes, more business, etc., and you might be hitting some bottlenecks with those old versions. So keep this in mind. These are the relevant dates, and this is straight from Microsoft. So that being said, I dropped the term there, and that's my parlance for modern NAV. The first version being 2013. I say that because there's a significant architectural change between 2009 and 2013. There's a similar shift happening now. So in essence, if you're on 2009, you've literally skipped a generation of software here. But if we go into this here, we have some exciting news to share with you as of yesterday. We've been trying to keep this to ourselves here for a while, but as you might have heard, there's been a lot of chatter here in recent months about the future of NAV, the name itself. Something called Tenerife has been bubbling up quite a bit in the media, in the blogosphere and other news channels. So it's worthwhile to run through this here. What's in a name? So this first version of modern NAV, so to speak, was 2013, version 7, also known as Sicily. I think that's the first island moniker they used for a software build internally at the NAV team. The next version was called Crete, another island. And in 16, we had Corfu. And here we have an interesting development with something called Madeira. And coinciding with this release, we had Dynamics 365 Business Edition, the first inkling of a SaaS product. And not everybody realized at the time that this wasn't really a completely new thing. It was really Microsoft exposing parts of NAV, basic NAV as a SaaS product. That's what Madeira was. Coinciding with these last releases, there was a huge step forward in terms of the capabilities of the web client for NAV and the mobile clients. And now here in this year, we have, well, this was released technically in December, NAV 2018, and that is something that's been referred to within Microsoft and the channel, and also in some client-facing conversations as of late, as Tenerife. And I believe that was that name was exposed at the user group summit earlier last year. So along with that came a release roadmap, and that was sort of staggered. They were going to release NAV, the on-prem version of Dynamics NAV 2018 in December, and we would see the spring release of the full Tenerife product as a SaaS product, and in the form of an R2 moniker for NAV 2018. And that's happened. And I'm happy to reveal to you, if you haven't already seen this, that the name of the product is Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central. And this has been under NDA for us now for a few months. We can finally talk about it, and Microsoft launched yesterday a website you can go to get more information. I'll show you the URL here shortly. And it's worth noting that the actual release of this is going to be April 2nd. So we have a couple of weeks here between now and then. In this release, you will see new UI or UI improvements, both in the color scheme here and various improvements in the layout used in the product in various areas. So it is quite a step forward. And also with this release, we also have the SaaS pricing, software as a service. So now you have NAV in the cloud as a SaaS product, comparable to what you see with, say, NetSuite or other cloud-based products. And the pricing is on Microsoft's website for everybody to see. And you will see these two tiers. So these correspond roughly to the pricing you have for your perpetual licensing today, the two categories. So a full user is the higher tier there. These will be referred to, at least for us internally, as P1 and P2. And this is very, very aggressive pricing. We've done some calculations here in comparison with other products, and I will share with you that Microsoft is being extremely aggressive in this pricing and clearly not pulling any punches. If you want to transition your existing licensing to this product, we will work with you to make sure we protect your investment as well as possible. Microsoft will be giving you a significant discount of this pricing, but you can't transition like you would have been between products in the past, dollar for dollar. It's going to be much as it was with the AX transition to Dynamics 365 operations, where they extend a nice discount for the cloud licensing to their existing clients for a period of time. And in our case, that will last into 2020. So I hope you share my excitement for this, and I encourage you to go and take a look at what Microsoft already has out there for the product. And maybe looking back here to this roadmap is useful at this point in time. Those of you which have attended our webinars on what's new in NAV and how to prepare for the future will have seen this roadmap in some shape or form. And you see we're now here in spring 2018. and we have the formal release of Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central as the cloud SaaS product. Ongoing into the future, it's important to note that the on-prem version of NAV and this cloud product are really the same product. This is exactly the same code running here. So the choice of running it on your own servers or on-prem or in a private cloud still exists, but it's very, very clear that Microsoft is driving all of us to this cloud proposition, and the future is very much in the cloud. With regards to the product itself, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. This is what I shared with people when 2018 was out. There are major improvements with regards to the core platform itself. On the database level, we have some significant improvements, especially with the schema used in particular. So performance enhancements, very, very important there. And overall, we have a lot of enhancements across the board, really, when it comes to the core product, and that's a byproduct of Microsoft working hard here for the last few years to make this a cloud-ready and cloud-worthy product. In terms of the application itself, there's a lot of new functionality, more than I can cover here, really. But I wanted to highlight these points, which I find are important to many people, especially the new Excel reporting templates, the way you can open stuff up in Excel directly from NAV, either the web client or the FAT client, and you can make your edits right there in your Excel spreadsheet. And if you have the correct permissions, etc., then that greatly simplifies bulk editing of data for you. More and better Power BI, that is very, very important as well in the clients. And actually PDF reporting reports are now native on any device, so you can get to any report in PDF form from your phone or tablet as well. And I also want to focus on some of the Outlook integrations. Very, very important stuff happening there. These workflows that start with an email from a client, we use applied machine learning to pre-populate forms in NAV forms within Outlook, and start and in some cases run a process through end-to-end without leaving your email inbox. A very, very significant productivity improvement for many people. In terms of workflow, we will see more Flow coming up, Microsoft Flow, as well as improvements to the built-in workflows. So very, very significant across the board, but that's not really the focus of our chat here today. So I want to direct you to this link. And I'm sure you'll get the slides here after, so you don't have to panic here or screenshot and write this down. But you can go to this URL to find out more about the new product. Now, vis-a-vis this topic here, planning ahead, this becomes an important consideration. And don't worry, I'm not going to go through all of this slide here. It's a little bit busy. But the question is, should you upgrade or re-implement, and what does that mean at this point? If you're coming from 2009 and you want to go straight to, say, the SaaS product or 2018, there are some major considerations you need to be aware of. First off, your customizations or work that was done for you in the past really needs to be brought forward at this point. It's no longer possible just to do a straight up object upgrade, for those of you which know what that means. Well, it is I might have misspoken there a little bit. It is possible to do that, but it's not something we would recommend. That would be in the category of a technical upgrade. and it's something that is really not recommended at this point. The reason is, especially in the SaaS world, if you're using the new product in the cloud, you are running the risk of all of those changes that were made in the system in the past, if they are not brought forward to modern coding standards for NAV using what's called extensions 2.0. Those will probably break every upgrade cycle. Every time the cloud product is changed or upgraded, that's going to be a consideration. So while you can, in some cases, opt for a straight up technical upgrade like we've done in the past, pros of that would be a shorter time frame to do it in, requires less time from your business users, and we can pretty much take your database and upgrade it, and you'll just get the benefits of the new UI and a better system overall. Perhaps we'll use the opportunity to clean it up a little bit as well. That can be a pretty quick process, but you're really just kicking the can down the road, because if you want to take advantage of the cloud product and the benefits it brings, or the even if you're using it as and hosted on Azure on a private cloud, or even on an on-prem server, you're really putting yourself at a risk here by not modernizing your implementation. So in most cases, we'll be looking at some sort of a re-implementation, or at least a strategy. We need to have a strategic engagement to understand how we can migrate you from the past into the now. And given that we have had this architectural shift here, actually two shifts. First, we had what's called extensions 1.0, and now we have this 2.0 model from Microsoft. And there's a great deal of emphasis placed on us to make use of that for any modifications or system tailorings. So keep that in mind, and we can have a separate conversation as needed here on this with those that are interested. So planning ahead here, we can also emphasize the fact that Microsoft is very open to feedback. And I will say that in my experience working with different publishers of ERP software, I find the openness of the Microsoft team here to input both from partners and clients is unique. And I much encourage you, if you're missing some functionality or something you like to point out, to make sure you share that with Microsoft. So moving on to some key considerations. Of course, there are more, but these are sort of ones we wanted to highlight here. So when we start on this journey, we want to think about what is the desired end state. What do you want to do? Or what are the problems you want to solve here business-wise? What will this enable you to do that you can't do now? And where is the room for business process improvements? If you're an older system, odds are there's a lot of new best practices and new processes that have been rolled into the system over the last 10 years or so, which you're not necessarily you don't have available to you, or you might have gone a roundabout way through a customization or something to accomplish. So part of our counseling here in this context would be to make sure you're using what's in the system and leverage best practices wherever possible. And also I would highlight the fact that this is an opportunity for you to make sure you're leveraging the strength of the whole platform. How do you have your Dynamics 365 and Office 365 applications working together? And of course, at the outset, you need to make a decision. Is this where we re-implement our system, or are we doing a straight-up upgrade? And as a rule of thumb, you can probably assume if you're coming from an older system or even older than 2009, it's not really a question of an upgrade. You really need to re-implement. And this becomes a key consideration because from a NAV perspective, for the last few years, we've had sort of the luxury of being able to be in both worlds, and that will certainly continue. But this is a time to ask yourself, given sort of the emphasis Microsoft is putting on the cloud product and its interactions and interoperability across the platform. You should be asking yourself if now is the time to go to the cloud, or why wouldn't you? And you should look at the pros and cons, cost-wise, and in every different aspect. Security repeatedly is a concern that people raise. In reality, it's very hard for people to achieve a higher level of security than Microsoft achieves on its Azure platforms and for the SaaS products in particular. So I would say that those using that to sort of defend the position of keeping something in-house, they should take a hard look at their proposition. We see all kinds of situations. We come into situations where people are running a few servers in a closet, or the system admin might even, in a recent case, which I'm not going to name, I heard of somebody who routinely would take a server home over the weekend to perform upgrades on it. So there's your business with email and ERP and everything, just walking out the door on a Friday and coming back on a Monday. So security is paramount in today's world, as the guys from our InfoSec team will be happy to tell you. Unfortunately, we see some types of attacks on the rise, and people that are oblivious to this risk, unfortunately, become victims. We've had a number of ransomware instances pop up here in the past couple of years, and that's very hard to deal with. So I would say moving to the cloud onto a mature SaaS platform like we have here is an improvement for most people when it comes to security. But the infrastructure question needs to be tackled at the outset here, because let's say you're running on aging servers. Are you looking to spend $100,000, $200,000 on hardware for this project, or do you want to spread that out as OpEx over the next few years and just pay for your SaaS licensing? That's a consideration for many. How do you best make use of your precious cash? A topic I can't stress enough in this and other conversations we have is that this is an opportunity for you to adopt modern application lifecycle management. And that's something we have pioneered for Dynamics NAV in the past. It's really not something that's been easily achievable with NAV in the past until this last version. But this entails sort of elements which are considered the standard in most software and implementation practices today. Proper source code management, proper documentation, use of agile methodologies. We use Cloud SureStep Plus, I would say, from Microsoft. We have some modifications to that, but we're very focused on bringing the benefits of an agile approach to our projects. And again, this question of a technical upgrade versus re-implementation. If you're adopting a modern lifecycle management approach, that entails putting in automated testing, for instance. So in the past, it was not possible really to do full regression testing on a NAV implementation. What that means is, let's say somebody would make a change in the system somewhere. Depending on your operational environment, you might have requirements from a technology auditing standpoint to retest everything in the system. And even if you don't have that, there should be a nagging concern at the back of your head saying, okay, we changed this, but did it affect something else in the system? How can I be sure nothing is broken? And the only way really to get around that is to retest everything. And that can, depending on the complexity of a system, can take a lot of time. With the release of NAV in 2015, we saw the light of the first implementation of an automated test suite from Microsoft for NAV. So part of the question here, if you're upgrading or re-implementing at this point, should be how do we get the automated testing into our system so that going forward, when there's a change, we can test most of this automatically. That is definitely a key element of our approach, especially if we're re-implementing a system for our clients. We will make sure to make use of all of these elements. And my direction to my team here is to make use of extensions 2.0 for all of our modifications or custom development for our clients from this point on going forward, and has been for a while now. And that is to inoculate you, make sure you are not vulnerable to these sort of ghosts here of our past, or demons rather, where you are held back because of some custom development that is going to break if you move to the new system. In a SaaS world, where this product will be upgraded for you periodically without anything done by us or you, this is hugely important. And what this is, for those of you which are maybe not up to speed with this kind of verbiage, this is a way to abstract the changes we might make or want to make on your behalf in the system. Abstract those changes from the core system itself through a very well-defined interface. And as long as Microsoft keeps that interface the same and we adhere to the guidelines of how to talk to it, anything we do will work as before every time they change the system or upgrade the system. So going forward, upgrades are going to be very, very simple and easy to do. And if you're in the cloud, it's just going to happen. Our responsibility will be to make sure whatever we have done for you will not break in those situations. So again, modern lifecycle management. This is a key element. And if somebody is proposing to go forward without these approaches, or just to do a straight up technical upgrade for you for very little, I would caution against that. You're setting yourselves up for a lot of trouble. So the way forward is to come into modern times here and approach this with an eye on best practices for systems implementations. Another element that is very, very important here is the systems training or training of end users across the board. If your staff is used to up to a decade-old system at this point, they will need some training on the new system. And if you go to that web page I gave you the URL for earlier, go to Microsoft and you see the screenshots they have there from the system. You can see the UI has evolved. It is consistent across the different devices. There's a great deal of flexibility now in your ability to tailor the UI and across the board, so you can make changes in the web app, mobile client, and the FAT client. on a user level, you can do that. So your users will need some training. The good news is all of this is firmly rooted in the traditions of NAV of the past and the rest of the Microsoft stack, Outlook and Office. So learning curve should be really, really easy for most folks. If there are elements of the system you are not properly leveraging today, or people are perhaps jumping out into Excel or something to get their work done and then coming back into the system, we can absolutely tailor some training to your specific needs at any time during the life cycle of the solution. Because our job here is to make you successful and protect your investment in the system. Another element that is really, really important is strong support. So with our dedicated support and upgrade teams, as well as the CAMs, which you are engaged with on a more frequent basis, I'm sure, we should be able to give you the level of support you need. We can be your first level support even, but we are very happy to tailor our support role for your organization based on your needs. And you should be talking to your CAM about either an SLA or sort of making sure you have the type of support that enables you and your users to properly leverage the system, and that we can help you be successful and make sure that we have a strategic engagement focused on making you successful going forward. I'm going to breeze through some of these here. The timeline for this, typically we would start this process with some sort of a technical audit, maybe a BPA even, depending on the status of the system. So we'll come in and review what you have and how things are working and how to approach bringing it forward. If it's a BPA and you want to do sort of a full process analysis, go back to the drawing board, so to speak. So you're not going to be paving a cow path or just doing things you've always done them in the new system, taking advantage of the new system fully. We're happy to do a BPA engagement with you and help you figure that out. We also need to assess your current systems landscape, what needs to happen there. You might have Active Directory running on site or not. You might need the Active Directory on Azure. You might be running your CRM on site, or you have another CRM system you didn't have when you implemented the system initially. Lots of different considerations, so we'll assess that. And then when we start off, we do typically a kickoff call. We get into the project, and after that, there's the training as part of the project and the testing. Make sure you're ready, and then we actually go live at a time point of your choosing. This is a highly collaborative effort, and I don't think we have time for it here today, but it would be worthwhile to jump into our implementation process with you and go through that. Now, after the project is live, your new re-implementation of a NAV in the cloud or Dynamics 365 Business Central, you'll want to have adequate support, and we'll tailor that to meet your needs. The benefits of Cloud ERP specifically, that's these 6 points are among those. Those are by no means the only ones, but these are points we want to make sure you keep in front of you. And depending on the solution, the flexibility is pretty great here. So for instance, with Dynamics 365 Business Central, you have a choice of using the built-in CRM functionality or to take an extra step. And there's a seamless integration to what's now called Dynamics 365 Sales. There's a special SKU of that product which works extremely well with our cloud product here. So same goes across the stack, really. So now you're in an environment where you have your Office 365, your SharePoint, your Power BI, your CRM, and your ERP system. All of this working in harmony, sharing documents across, and it's a pretty powerful value proposition. And since this is all tied together in the Microsoft Cloud, it's almost an unbeatable value proposition from my perspective. So it's got a lot going for it, and it's very clear that Microsoft's investment is focused on this. So keep that in mind. As we come to the end of our time here shortly, I guess after this sort of outline of the key considerations, want to re-emphasize the dates we started with, realizing that your 2009 is technically out of support, and 2013 ended its regular support, and you're now in extended support. Still, there's no need to panic. Let us help you understand what is the right step for you to take. We have a team of experts standing by. Of course, you know these folks. I'm assuming your CAM. Start there, work with them, and get the proper engagement to our services team, through our dedicated upgrade team and the support team, to assess what's the right fit for you and how we should take this forward. At the very least, make sure you're not outside for some risk in terms of some incident or something happening which would put you in a difficult situation to execute your business. You don't want to be in that situation. So work with your CAM, make sure you have the either the extended support in place from Microsoft or adequate support from us to guarantee your business continuity going forward. So these wonderful people you have on here, they're all about helping you and making sure you navigate properly through our organization as well as Microsoft. So I would definitely encourage you to have this conversation with them, post this presentation, and if there is a need, an immediate need, we're happy to work with you to schedule something as quickly as possible. Sometimes hard for us, given the volume of projects, to do this on short notice. But of course, we will work very, very hard to make sure that we have the right solution in place for you and protect your interests. So that being said, Lori, I think I'm about to open this up for questions if there are any.
Yes, we have a question. Okay, so I'm on 2009, and so I believe you recommended that we go back for a re-implementation and starting with a BPA. Can you kind of define BPA and kind of describe how long a BPA process typically takes and who's involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So a BPA or a business process analysis project is where we come in and we'll give you a proposal for this. We walk through your business processes and map them to the new system. So even in case you don't go forward and do this, it's still a lot of value in it because it gives you a documentation of these processes. And you could take that on to do whatever you want after the fact. But in terms of the actual scope of those engagements, it varies on the complexity of your business, I guess, size of your business, and a couple of other parameters perhaps. But we see BPAs lasting from, on the shorter end, a couple of days, 2-3 days, up to weeks, month-long BPA. That's something we've seen in sort of on the larger end of that scale. So what happens is we give you a deliverable there after that, and and this is done by a business analyst who's familiar with the product from our side. So it's a functional person with enough technical background and business experience. Sometimes it's more than one person, depending on the complexity. But these people will come in. They will be on site with you, ideally for some of this time. They will document things. They will turn around and give you a deliverable, which enables you to go straight into a project. So in a way, it negates some of the need for having an envision or discovery phase in a project and partially into design even, depending on how far it goes. So you will know exactly to a high degree of certainty. You will know sort of the cost and the scope of your project. There will be very little unknowns, even if, of course, we can always have something pop up, but rarely do we see something like that after a BPA. So you will know exactly what it entails, especially if you're coming from an old system which doesn't have a lot of documentation, which unfortunately was sort of the way of NAV in the old. People would come in and make stuff for you. They would do changes in the code, etc. And unfortunately, some of that wasn't always adequately documented. So the benefit of going through a BPA will one of them will be that you take those unknowns a little bit out of the picture. You have a much clearer understanding of what you're about to engage in, what the cost will be, what the timeline will be. So I'm sure we could give you, if you're interested, if you talk to your CAM, we could give you a sort of an example of what a deliverable out of this process would look like for you.
Would one of these deliverables kind of be a say a cost benefit of going to a software as a service model?
Yeah, actually, your CAM also can put that together for you. And given this aggressive pricing, that's kind of changed the ballgame. We used to do these calculations based on say Azure hosting of NAV, and over a period of time, like 5 years or something, it maybe didn't look that appealing compared to just your existing perpetual licensing scheme. But I will say with this pricing of Microsoft SaaS offering and the cloud product, it's very aggressive. But absolutely, part of this is for you to understand the pros and cons of continuing with your perpetual licensing or moving to the cloud. Also keep in mind, if you're migrating from an existing NAV setup and you have licenses in place, you will get a very sizable discount on this published pricing. We can work with you to make sure you get that from Microsoft, and that's something that they will have available for you for the next couple of years here, until mid-year 2020, I believe. So that's sort of an opportunity for you to transition your investment forward. And I want to give Microsoft kudos really for doing that. I think that's the right thing to do. And they've always been good about protecting your investment and licensing. So that's in line with that, and happy to see that.
And how would that be compared with an ISV?
They're all different, the ISVs, so it's hard to generalize. And in some cases, that becomes part of the BPA. If you're highly reliant on some ISV that might not, especially if some highly specialized or smaller ISV, they might not be ready for the cloud product. Even some of the larger ones have plans for sort of a hybrid approach or a timeline for, say, a mid-year or next year even, when they will be ready to support you in a SaaS world. So that's part of what the BPA should be about for you, is mapping that. Which ISVs will you need? In some cases, your ISV that you have been using for the last 10 years might now be redundant because of functionality in the product, or there might be a better option even. So that's part of what the BPA is about. But most of the major ISVs are ready and have been ready for some time. We ourselves are an ISV, so we also work with Microsoft in that capacity. So we've met with the other ISVs and Microsoft as recently as this last January up in Redmond to talk through readiness on some of these in some of these major areas.
Okay, so the next step would be for me to reach out to my CAM, correct?
Absolutely, or if you're engaged with some of our services folks, you can take it up with them too, and they will help you navigate. But CAM is always a good start. If you're an existing client of ours, then absolutely start with your CAM and have them get you the right people to talk to on the NAV team.
Okay, I think that concludes today's presentation. I'd like to thank Colbine for your time today, and please look for a follow-up email that will alert you on the status of today's event so you can review the material you missed or simply go over it again. On behalf of the Sikich team, I'd like to thank you for joining us and taking the time to view our presentation. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everybody.